Was popular YouTube. Another day, another demo. We're looking at Aleksib B today, and we're trying to here in the official, unofficial IEM New York 2020 coverage channel find out why OG got swept. 3-0 FaZe to OG. Mirage was a very tight game. It actually went to double overtime where FaZe picked it up. We want to know now what it was about OG's T side that wasn't good enough. Okay, for those of you who watched the game, it was today. I'll probably be putting this out tomorrow as Terrace is up as of yesterday, and we're going to look at and try to figure out when Aleksib B made some good calls, where OG fell short. When they had a good game plan that went to bullying Kirby on B for playing that pillar the exact same way that we always see him play it, why wasn't it that OG couldn't have had an amazing T side? And for once, we're going to look at a demo where Aleksib B is the focus, but it's not because he had an 18-0 CT side half on train. It's not because he went 2-15 and really blew it for his team. Instead, we're going to look at this because he had a very average half, and the calling and his impact as a caller was very apparent, but his impact as a player was both good and bad. It was just somewhere in the middle for once. Here on it's a Coach Lau first. We're going to look at a very average performance, which I think is going to be very interesting. When I look at Mirage, because I watched some of it, I was in and out, watched a little bit, and from what I saw, there was a lot of interesting things to talk about. You know, Aleksib B had 10 kills, 57 ADR, not a great half. Could be worse, could be better. So I think why don't we just watch a regular game, look at a half, and see what was good and bad, and then try to tie in some of the calling like we did with the Perfecto demo, and I think we could do it for the official and unofficial ESL New York coverage channel. Okay, so why don't we go ahead and take a look. Aleksib B plays on 1440 by 1080, a very reasonable man. Okay, he plays on a 1080. No vertical stretching here for Aleksib B, even though he goes down to 4-3 because 4-3 players, they want to win. That's why they're on 4-3. But playing on 1080, that's Galaxy brain because that's no vertical stretching. Because why do we stretch so the models get wider, not so they get taller? Everybody's tall enough. We don't want to fight sumo. We want to fight sumo wrestlers, not supermodels. That's why we go down to 4-3. But Aleksib B is going to keep it on the same height. Okay. 1440 by 1080. We're going to try to plug in the view model. And hopefully it works. Sometimes it doesn't update. That's why the view model is not always correct. But I put it in early. Face a hub check. 3 in queue. You want to get in the queue. We're trying to get these going 24/7. Lots of people joining the hub. At Boxer 10mans on Twitter to join in on the action, on the Boxer hub action. Let's hop into the game and find out what it was in this matchup. Congratulations to FaZe for winning New York. This was the first final this year for FaZe and the first ever grand final for OG. I think I have that correct. Some very close calls this year, Cologne, Pro League for OG. But this is the first time they got to the final and got their shit pushed in. So, but at least they got there. There's some progress. Let's find out what it was all about. I found this half to be very interesting from Aleksib B's perspective. It was one of those games where you could see that his actions and his positioning dictated the round around him. This is a specialty map for Aleksib B. And I think it gets interesting right out the gate here on the CT side. So on the T side, first round in the pistol. One thing I want to draw attention to, there is always this game that happens at CT spawn when the bomb gets planted. Normally gets planted inside triple, and then everybody pushes into CT spawn. The CTs gather up in CT spawn. They wait for the flash peek from the CTs, and then they duel. It's something that everybody agrees to do these days. But OG, who had the best pistol stats coming into this final, decided not to do that. So they go instead, put the bomb down, walk over towards the jungle, and try to find duels this way. But things do not go as planned. First things first, Aleksib B jumps out of dodge. And this isn't a great position because there's the cat angle, there's the underpass angle he's holding, and when he peeks from connector, there's a lot of pre-fireable positions here, the left or the right side. It's not too complicated for the CTs to deal with, and sometimes it's that first kill that becomes the swing kill. And that's why we see a lot of teams default to that CT spawn control. Try to overtake CT spawn, fall black, and just play that game that everyone agrees to play. This is a specialty map for Aleksib B specifically because of the smokes on T side. Okay, that's what we need to pay attention to the most. He does such a great job and actually released, I think, a 35 or 40-minute tips and tricks video on Mirage. That's pretty unlike most YouTubers' tips and tricks videos. It's got a lot of stuff he uses in pro games, which is very kind of him. It's a lot of in the middle of the round smokes, a lot of selfish smokes, right? Not smokes for choke points, not smokes for strategies, but instead smokes for tactics. And of course, how we define tactics is the plays that go inside of strategies. So you can conflate the two because a tactic might be a part of a strategy, but not the other way around. Tactics are the 5-second play, the right-click a smoke, jump up, peer over it type of play. The strategy is the overarching theme for the round. And I think for Aleksib B, we have a lot of smoke tactics for him on this map, though he is also calling. So off of losing the pistol, but getting the bomb down, they have enough money to put together a competent buy. They'll go towards mid. Not a huge fan of this, just because look at the number of choke points, right? From window, you can see the cross to cat. From window, you can peek. From cat, you can peek. From ladder room, you can peek. From connector, you can peek. The stairs, tucked in the right, the cubby, the box, in connector. There are a million ways to die on cat. And so I personally would prefer the bomb to go halls this round. I don't really remember what happens, but you can toss the smoke down. And this is why it gets hard, of course. Now the bomb, not only that, but of course the bomb is hard to get for your teammates. Everybody else dies on their way in, so it doesn't really matter that much. But it's not so much that Cold Zera, was in an incredible spot. He was just in one of so many different positions that you could be in that you can't expect as a T coming up cat that you're going to be prepared for every single one. So that's why I would say there's just too many variables when you come up cat. But for whatever reason, a lot of teams like to do anti-ecos with cat splits and send their bombs on suicide missions. It's like a common theme that teams like to do. And I think it's because they like to end B, and of course, if you can end B and you like that site, then splitting B is always appealing. And so following that logic, sending players up cat and through halls makes sense. But I would just personally focus on halls and definitely send the bomb through halls. See a lot more success that way, I'd say. But Glock round here, and they're going to go take over mid. So one thing FaZe do on Mirage, or one thing they don't do, I should say, is they don't play on window a lot. They'll oftentimes not bust open the grates. They'll not play in CT spawn. They'll play 2-3, sometimes 3 leaning towards B, 1 watching the back of the window, and chill that way. We've talked about how with Nico's mechanics, a video from, I think, Saturday, how when you play in the jungle, it's a very scary position to play in because you always have to watch your back in some capacity. Either you're facing the window and you have to watch the guy opping palace, or someone's coming up connector and you've got to make sure you don't get flanked from window. You don't really have an easy way to escape, and you have a lot of fights to take. So FaZe actually like to forego it completely and play extremely passive setups or kind of perimeter setups around the map. 1 spawn, 2 on A against the walls or in CT spawn, 2 in B, and commit that way. So now OG down. Just 2 rounds are going to go for the palace pop. So idea here, flash will go high over this wall. And the idea with palace pop is, very fundamentally sensible. They'll have everybody very close to the bomb planting zone, right? All you have to do is get from that choke point that's basically touching the A site bomb planting zone, jump out, plant the bomb. If the flash is good enough, it'll blind the guy on stairs who has the direct line to see anybody coming out of halls. And in that 1 second, your players can come out, swing, kill the guy in CT spawn, and then jump out, get the bomb down. And if you get the CT spawn kill, then you're pretty much safe for everything else. You can actually initiate a post plant. And especially if you get the kill. If you don't get the kill on CT spawn, you've got a bit of a problem. And we might see the player A ramp use a Molotov. Valda's got one. We'll see. I don't actually know if he does. But the smoke's coming out. Trades look amazing. And it looks like they had a first tier execute. So the smoke that gets thrown from FaZe goes a bit too far, so it doesn't threaten anything because there's a gap between the stairs and that. Doesn't you'd think normally there'd be a lurk. And of course, people like to come out, stand on top of the bench where Aleksib is holding, and try to fight that way. But at this point, round's done. They don't want to fight. They don't want to lose people if they can avoid it. And so it's probably in FaZe's best interest to save and go for the next. They've got majority alive, so they can rebuy on 2. Okay, so we get into the default of the next round. So far, so decent for OG. Lost the first and second round, but they secured the first rifle. It's kind of a big confidence win. So here's the default. Over on the A site, your A lurker, it's kind of his call. Do I want to hold A ramp? Do I want to hold the palace pop? Or do I want to hold for the palace push? These are the decisions they can be trusted to make. You can see on the mini map, he's holding back, waiting for the push, watching A ramp. It's wherever he thinks the lurk is going to come from. And whether or not he pushes out is not a strategy you come out with in the beginning of the round. It's something he does by feel. He listens for audibles. He tries to get a read on the setup. And then he'll pick one every 4 or so rounds to lurk out of the A ramp, lurk out of the palace, and make a huge play for the team. Or come back and be the guy top mid, be the guy in the post plant and B apps. So they're going to go for the full on B hit. And they're just making sure there's no weird lurk plays. Still looking for Kirby here. And they found him kind of empty pillar. Aleksib being cognizant of any smoke pushes. And now he'll wrap. And his position could get very strong. Kirby being extremely active from his position to just run around the site. Wrap it like it's a go-kart track and find the frag on Aleksib. He's tilted for sure, but it's still a 3v2 here for OG. And you can see how important it is for them to have secured van control. Now that they're on van, the player on B-Ops can stand there, be comfortable, and BK has open lines on the market door. And Issa, in the middle of all of that, can kind of safely think about planting. You can't really do that in a pug. If you do that in a pug, people are going to get tilted. Everyone's standing on the halls. But in this situation where they all can agree on what they're trying to accomplish, it's much easier to get away with kind of slow rolling the site, forcing the CTs to push out of position, not just swarming like you kind of need to in a pug. So another very, very decent round here for OG. And because they won a round on A, a round on B, and have held for a default for pushes, they're probably feeling very good. So Aleksib already anticipating the pistols is going to get a Mac 10 even though we know he has money. And they'll attempt A. So I really don't remember what even goes wrong here. And so this is a second look, a deeper look into what maybe Aleksib sees to understand what may or may not go wrong. Holding now for pushes. Sun's out, guns out. Don't stand there with your smoke in hand for 45 seconds. And this is a bit weird for OG because they see a smoke go down a ramp, but they're anticipating pistols. And now they're concerned that they are running into some sort of stack, so they're holding back to see if the pushes are coming. I personally think it's a bit too late for you. So you can see how they're spreading back slowly. Okay, so now imagine if you're in the default and you have one person B-apps, one person mid, and 40 seconds passes by. You don't have to do this, right? You don't have to have two people slow crawl back through spawn to check to see if any CTs have made a giant mistake in flanking too far. And I don't think FaZe are going to make a big mistake of flanking before an execute even occurs, right? They might push and stop and get information, but otherwise, why would they? So if I'm OG in this situation, I probably just commit to the A exec. I wait. I have one person watch flank, but I don't go back and clear stuff out. It's very unlikely that you're going to get a kill in this way. But I guess they're not going to go for a full A. Instead, they're actually thinking about having a 2 lurk mid. Oh, okay, that's actually an interesting adjustment. So I thought they were just going to make sure no one was coming, but it looks like they're going to send 2 maybe to go to fight connector. Maybe the plan is to front fight, or the plan is to smoke and plant front triple. We'll find out. I don't even know how that's possible. MBK comes up with a nade in hand, and Aleksib is the one to die first. I feel like MBK was totally in vision. I'm not exactly sure what went wrong there. But one of them dies because one has a smoke out, and the other one loses the pure duel because he's in the back not expecting to have to fight. Very awkward situation. I mean, that round is just all about rain already, but would have liked to see how that would have played out, going 1 for 1. So Kirby already a good start on this round. And Nico, he's offered up a frag. That's one of those positions where you would hope that the team who knows there's one underpass doesn't go for a duel, but at the same time, they might not have known Nico was there. It was Kirby who got the first fight. But let's say Aleksib B clears underpass. MBK doesn't die in the back of B apps there. And everyone is just getting picked apart. So it's not looking very good already here for OG. And it's also majority alive here for FaZe. So just a nice kind of economic win here for FaZe on top of the round win itself. So what's the best course of action? Well, we've seen so now that we've seen the A play go wrong, but we've also seen one go right in the past. I think in FaZe mind, it's still possible an A play comes through because they got that lucky play from Rain that allowed them to be able to win the round. I did this again. I had my camera in that position, and I forgot to change it from the Nico demo. Okay, we caught it. It's not... it's a little bit late into it, but it's okay. So we had the one round that worked well on A, the one round that didn't work so well because Rain was sitting there and caught a lucky timing. So I think in FaZe's mind, they're still worried about an A play. And that's why OG's options are a little bit open. Also, mid is possible. So I think for Aleksib B, this was the kind of round where it's like, I'm not exactly sure what I want to do, but both can work. So another important part of the default is if you see some nades being thrown on B right now, you know that in previous rounds, some of these similar nades were being thrown before. And so it's hard to tell if you're FaZe whether or not it means anything. If it's indicative of an execute or if it is just a default and a fake towards A at the end. So they clear out all the close-up positions, and now the last thing they have to worry about is Van. And Aleksib B will toss a nade out for a push. What is that kill? Oh my god. He actually calls out coldzera's push and just completely destroys on the B site. Kirby trades him out again, but that round is all about Aleksib B. I have no idea how he even read that so well. That was like a demo kill that he got on coldzera. He threw the nade preemptively on the pillar face and then jumped out and spammed the run out for coldzera. So as soon as the nades came out, I think he was anticipating coldzera to push that smoke as if it's a gimmick play he likes to do. That was a beautiful round for Aleksib B. Kind of leading by example, running out as the entry and making that honestly incredible play. And again, we're looking at a very average half overall stats-wise from Aleksib B. I think makes it all the more interesting. So again, clearing out the underpass, which is huge. And one thing I think that goes wrong that I remember is that for Aleksib B, FaZe start calling him out. We'll notice now he's going mid a lot by himself, which can be good. And that's an incredibly fast kill from Nico. Wow. Nico didn't even have shadow advantage. Aleksib B was holding for the wider swing out. And Nico grabbed that frag. That was incredibly fast. That was definitely very cool to see without X-Ray. But it doesn't matter. It seems like OG are doing just fine. For some reason, they've been able to pull every single player out of the B site. And it looks like FaZe will go for the instant save. So we'll go ahead on to the next round. And they've covered everything quite well. This is a very tough half for FaZe to read, I would say, at this point. And as we can see, the A site, the full A play was still in their mind. It feels like they're leaning towards A when there's lower buys, they feel like. But there was a 4-man save from FaZe, so maybe not. 2 soldiers on the A ramp. And the exec is just waiting for the smoke to come up. Maybe we're looking at a 1:20 exec here. You throw the smokes not necessarily right when the other smokes have expired, the A-ramp smokes, but when they'll land. And that's a decent trade, but it's even better for FaZe. It's even better. Nico doing all of the work. Manual labor here on the A-ramp push versus Halls as well. Yeah, he has been a foreman in charge of a lot of different positions, honestly. He's been quite mobile. I mean, there won't be much here for Mantu to do. They've been shut down on this close A ramp play. So the reason that people play close A ramp versus full A executes is because the nades go over, right? The nades are designed to flash people in the back, eliminate CT spawn from having a line, eliminate stairs, eliminate jungle. But within the site, some of those positions don't actually see much attention from the grenades. Your close A ramp doesn't actually get mollied out on the close left. The player right in front of the smoke sometimes has an advantage versus a player running out. And so interestingly, before the smoke comes up, they decide to run out on a timing. But here's where your smokes need to go down, otherwise your execute gets slowed down quite heavily, and they haven't smoked jungle yet. So finally something will happen, but is jungle still open? It is, and I think there's a boost inside of the jungle to help them out. So they throw the deeper jungle smoke and then swing on connector. But this one's a bit messy. I think if this one they had the simpler grenades, they would have done just fine. Throw right side site smokes with the A ramp run out or something like that. It would have made sense because like all the momentum is clogged up here on the A ramp under the balcony, and no one can make progress as the smokes are dissipating and as your entire kit has left your hands. They have no nades to work with besides a single flash on Montu. So Valda trying to make a long con play. They're up A, bomb spotted by the CTs. So Valda's just assuming that they're not going to be watching this, but their flanks could be watched. So I think, A players got to make some presence. And they're looking to search out some fights. So even if Valda doesn't see anyone, he's clearing this for them. So now they know they can actually cross and try to fight con, but they haven't actually... He went for the dry swing solo, and now they just need to cover the plant. So he can plant maybe default and hope that no one peeks CT. He can plant opposite default. Kirby, I guess, had pushed to top mid while all that was going down. Very tricky round from FaZe. Hard to read what was going on there. But what was also tough was for Valda to say everything's cool without clearing out connector. Because if someone was sitting on the stairs watching the cross, it's still kind of a dangerous round. So Valda will call a pause here, maybe because there's some disagreements about what happened. And I think at the beginning of the round, you had a good situation where they dealt with that A-ramp demon. Well, this time it was both Nico and Rain. But after that, the smokes that came out to assist them to cross the site, no one trusted them. No one was willing to swing with Aleksib on connector. No one was willing to clear things out. No one was willing to make progress across the site. And everybody ran out of nades in the process. You don't want a situation where Valda has to go through with a lurk like that. So if I'm OG, I'm probably calling something towards B because it's not something you want to figure out in this matchup. It probably feels a bit random. Use a gimmick to get up the A-ramp fast. Last round, you've done A-ramp 3 times now, and it's not worked out. So I'd probably either go back to something B or mid-related. Maybe something just a lean towards B because the B full-on execs have gone so well. And actually, they don't even have enough money for a full buy. So they were probably calling that pause to discuss next round. So we'll see what the eco strat is. Aleksib is smoking window. And it looks like it's in underpass walk to potentially get into connector. Just as you have pistols doesn't mean that you can't win. So it's always good to invest in a smoke grenade, a flash, and see if the CTs make a huge mistake. So it's a jump spot setup. So even just seeing someone in a jump spot setup might tell you a lot. It's totally possible that FaZe have no one window here, no one jungle, no one stairs. And MBK somehow grabs a frag. I don't know where it comes from. And now FaZe start to panic a bit. And then here's where the crunch comes in. It's actually a winning round now for OG. Bomb can get planted really quickly. Aleksib hoping no one swings on him. And no one does. And now they've just got to get information on one last player, and it's a wrap. As soon as Aleksib sees a smoke, he's going to try to play off of it. And that is round 1 and done, all because of MBK's opening 1 dig. That's the swing kill that really sets things into motion. If he doesn't get that 1 dig, then Rain doesn't make a mistake from CT spawn because he feels pressure because it's a 4v5. The domino effect does not take place. So now we're going to have a CT timeout called to try to make sure that OG can't get away with any more of that. That eco round, unfortunately, I don't think that tells them much for what can happen on this round, because FaZe, they were playing it like an anti-eco, and OG, you know, can't rely on like a 1D like that to open up the round. So it doesn't. I don't think it has any bearing on what they're going to do now. So we'll see Aleksib here putting pressure out towards mid, and he's lurking. And this is quite common to do. And of course, this is the point where he'll feel a lot more confident. There's still ladder room to worry about, but the smoke is going to dissipate behind him soon. And so he has to worry about the window. He has to worry about the ladder peak. Now he has to worry about connector. And he's getting lucky on a few of these angles. There's no one here. So at this point, I mean, now you'd think they haven't even cleared for him at all. This is a very strange setup here for FaZe, and he allows OG to get into this B site. This is a big problem that was brought up on the desk. And we kind of see why it's a very flawed setup here from FaZe. They gave them so much control to not only get through the B apps without anybody pushing, but also not have anybody to catch a single lurk from Aleksib, because they were running this very passive mid setup. Absolutely no one in mid. No one, in fact, watching the connector cross. No one in mid. No one in ladder room even, which might have been a great spot to leave somebody like coldzera, for example. So it's looking up. But if I'm Aleksib, I'm assuming they're going to change something up on Cat. I'm probably going to do something. I'm just making a guess. Something more mid focused on the default to see if I can punish them for making any aggressive adjustment. And then I would think about going towards B again, or just seeing where the default leads at least. But instead, they actually get through with a very key Palace push with the op. A smart play here from FaZe, knowing OG are probably going to lean towards B again because this works so well. And here, I think it's the kill that puts them in the 4v5 that actually influences them to going towards B. But it's not a comfortable position here for OG. However, the trades once again are just fine. They do well to kill both Brokey and Kirby once again, and it seems like it's a weakened FaZe. There's not much to work with weapons-wise. They have a couple of pistols to combine with that op on Brokey, and maybe one or two rifles. Not exactly sure. That's the magic, of course, of watching demos this way, not knowing exactly what the other team is working with, trying to get a read based on what we've seen. So, final round, and it's been a lot of B success. And this is a round where I'm not sure how much FaZe invested on that previous round. That'll be a hard one to tell. Saw a couple players without head armor, but it doesn't mean they didn't have armor. Now, I think maybe they can assume there's no op, which might be nice. But I'm still kind of assuming that they're going to want to try to do something towards mid if I'm OG, but they haven't really done anything but sight hits for the most part. Aleksib has gone and lurked mid sometimes. Well, it looks like they're trying to scare damage the player over on B site, and maybe it looks like they want to end A. Bomb can't tell what he wants to do. There's not a lot of information being gained. They're just making sure no pushes are coming through. Aleksib has been hurt really badly by that grenade. It's a brave call to go with A. They've had basically no success here. But just because you haven't had success doesn't mean you should avoid the site. And sometimes when this round has gotten late enough, OG have ended B. So FaZe could be reading that it's going to be a B hit. But right now they've got to just make sure they don't die to the guy A ramp, and then make sure they've got enough utility to commit deliberately across the site. So we'll see if this execute looks any better than it did earlier in the half. Those smokes are good. Still a bit crowded up here in Tetris, but they're now clearing out some of the one and done and tucked positions. And look at the progress. MBK already front tripled. No one's there to trade with them. Smokes are going to start coming up now, and here, this is the point where, well, they haven't made the progress they need to, and it's looking very good again for OG or for FaZe, and you just wonder how that happens. They took a big gamble running that strat, but they really hung out MBK to dry by not having someone to trade the CT player, and without the CT player dying, allowing the smokes to come up at jungle and stairs, and then not having a bomb go down. You have to wonder. That was a very poor round there by OG, and it follows from a number of poor A rounds, like just a number of poor executions. Now, OG are a team that, to me, they have the potential of FaZe Clan in the terms of like their firepower is there. Like they have some very good. I think Montu is a big, the big question mark, but then he's been performing the best most of the time. And then Valda had a very good tournament so far. Issa has been getting a number of key moments and opportunities on the T side to open rounds up. And sometimes OG, they don't have the cleanest executions. They can be very crafty about how they get their kills, and sometimes the trades and the fundamentals are very good. But then you go to the next round on the other site, and then suddenly you have none of that. So, for an example, you had Aleksib B, jump out B and make that amazing play inside B. And just to keep this short enough, I'm not gonna. Maybe I'll just look at this one half. Well, maybe we'll just look at this one half. You have a situation where Aleksib B jumps out, throws a preemptive grenade and spams Cold Zero before he even peeks on the B site, and then gets the second kill as well. And then you have another round where on the A site, like where is the trust in the call? Where's the courage in the execution when they go on to A? So here's where you go to blank pages in the notebook. You start writing down things that worked well in the half and what didn't, and you stop thinking about what you prepared for before the match started. We're in overtime now, and so things will get a bit different. And there's a very key kill for Nico. And for Nico's, from this perspective, from Aleksib B's perspective, you see a kind of a bulging smoke from the connector, and no chance that someone goes out that far. But from Nico's perspective, it actually looked quite safe. He could fall back through the smoke, and he's in such an angle no one would ever assume he would go out that far. So critical kill for Nico, and it starts things out a little bit differently. It's one of the first times we're seeing OG in the connector at all. So they're going to look for trades, and this is really, again, new territory here for OG. This time around, Aleksib B once again running down mid, just turning up the speed a little bit, not really wanting him to be the person to get lurked on, instead trying to control the tempo and looking for a lurk. But Rain is aware of it, and this leaves his teammates in a precarious spot, and that's a free frag. Cold Zero unaware of how much of him is showing. Not sure if he was blind, actually. And the round on B ends up working well. It seems like every single round that OG won was only successes on B side, which is a bit of a problem. Nico wins again. I mean, it wasn't the easiest shot to grab that frag on Aleksib B. So him jumping down, I think he's expecting and hoping that Nico's in a position like that so he can grab the frag. But this makes things a little bit tough, and it actually feels like now OG are going to win again. So this position that Valda's in is where you want to end up on B before you get the post plant. This guy, this guy can see empty pillar. This guy can hold for the push like Kirby just made, who ran through a smoke but no one was spotting him, and can hold for the window jump out with the exact same angle. It's a very powerful spot to be in, even if they know that you're here. And that's going to be the end of the half. So there's a lot to look at, of course, in this demo. But that was jam-packed. So, no, we look at that game, and again, it's a game where Aleksib B, he middling performance, but we can see kind of how much impact he did have on the game, on the rounds they won, and how many calls were good, and where the, I don't know if the calls were bad or the execution was bad. To me, it looks like it's like they didn't dry run A enough. They weren't prepared for all options, or they didn't have good protocols for dealing with close A ramp executes. Those are the things I would look at. And it's like, if they just didn't, round 30, decide to go A and try it again, it would have been fine. But at the same time, why didn't it work? I think they got the opening kill, but then they didn't commit to getting the bomb down, getting control of anything. They were very scared of taking CT control on that pistol round. They were very scared of taking CT control on all their rifle rounds as well. And yeah, trades were just not quite as good. There was also a very high lack of middle control in regulation, but as soon as OT hit, they opened up to a bit more mid. And I wonder if it would make sense for them to use that more. One thing that they could have exploited, I think, was that Aleksib B was able to walk up cat and split B with his teammates once, but they never tried that again, even though it's pretty common for FaZe actually to leave middle entirely open, to not put coldzera in ladder room like he was in that one anti-eco, and just have a 2B setup, two market, 1B, and 2 A side setup. And so there's a few points of weakness they could have opened up. But they had some cool stuff on B. We had some cool plays by Aleksib B. And overall, the series was quite disappointing. It was good to get a second look at the half on T side, because I think it was one of the more interesting halves. So now we get to look at Aleksib B without kind of just looking at an outstanding performance. You want to do more demos like this? I think it would be a good idea. It doesn't have to be a demo where a one player just killed everybody, because it could be 4K spray downs on ecos. It could be a half like this, where tactically speaking, there's a lot of interesting things to talk about. And it's a very just regular performance. If you have games that you think I should, you want a second look at, leave a comment, and we can do more games like this. Because now my titles are a little bit different. They're just kind of looking at one specific thing. This weekend has been a lot of focus on mechanics, Nico's mechanics, Kirby's mechanics, Xantaris mechanics. But I really had a lot of fun with the Perfecto demo and the mix of individual skills and tactical stuff. And yeah, it's just really not all about the frags anymore. I think we've covered a lot of that stuff. So if you've got recommendations, matches you'd like a second look on, let me know. And we also might start doing lower level games where there's going to be a lot more mistakes, and the mistakes will be a lot more clear, and it'll be much more relatable to the average player coming up. But yeah, if you enjoyed that, leave a like, hit the follow bell. You know the drill. See you guys tomorrow.